Hey there, Wayne Chang from New Jersey here. Good to meet everyone. So our mission is to build a future where users control their identity and personal data across their digital interactions. Instead of people signing into platforms, platforms should sign into your data vault that you control entirely. That's how we want the internet to work. My first startup was a health tech company where I had to deal with health tech integrations. And that was very painful to watch many patients try to just get follow-up care or see a specialist, and none of their health records were portable, and that just didn't seem right. So, working against that problem, noticing how many other records are actually yours, and you should be able to have control over them and use them how you want to have a better experience, right? And it all comes down to providing a great end-to-end user experience. That's what we built the company on. And one of the biggest problems, as you heard earlier in other presentations, is basically security. Fraud, when you misidentify someone or allow the wrong person to get a benefit, right, you get fraud. And you also get breaches, data breaches, unauthorized access, et cetera. And that's how a lot of our critical infrastructure today is protected. A lot of data breaches, the resounding majority of them are basically from identity issues. Stolen credentials is how people might get access to other things, and this applies to all the things that are really important to our country. So we think that verifiable digital credentials has a big role to play, and you heard a lot about the ability to use cryptography to ensure that these things are provably authentic and tamper-evident, that they can be built in such a way that we can preserve privacy and build security into the core protocols, and also allow things like selective disclosure or being able to determine the presence of secure silicon, what device is being used to present the thing, where was that device manufactured, right, all the way down. So having these kinds of systems can improve our security, but I think they can also really improve the convenience. Because a really great security system is not great if it's not ergonomic. People just don't use it, right? No one wants to wear a helmet that's really uncomfortable, and they end up just not wearing the helmet, right? So we think that it's very important to explore workflows where you can use these credentials in a way that is ergonomic and focusing on the end-to-end user experience. So one example is having someone receive their permanent residency card. That was one of the items that we keep talking about, but it can apply for many other credential types too. Being able to present a QR code version offline enabled at the airport. In this example, we have a mobile application. Can be a mobile application released by an agency or a different wallet containing other credentials. And being able to easily display the QR code and get on your way with the interaction. I also think that the ability to create selective disclosure is critical to be able to select which fields or not for the use case. And being able to go on your way after the credential is shared. Another example in context is verification for employment. Many employers have to do something called an I-9, and that requires a certain identification to be used. It's important that all the identification are options for the verifier, but if the user has something that they can already have on their phone, it could be very convenient, maybe it's a cloud wallet, these are all end-to-end workflows we have to meticulously craft. They should still have the same base level ability to selectively disclose, enhance it with protocols and security, and be able to share their credential, getting back to their experience in the workflow. Because they got here to try to do something. They didn't come here to mess with digital credentials. They wanted to get an outcome and a result, right? That's what we have to focus on, and it's a part of the story, right? So that's really why we think a lot of processes can be improved, but we really have to use empathy and think about the end user, even the person behind the desk who's processing it, right? That end-to-end experience is critical as well. So we offer two things. We work on our product Credible, which is deployed cloud-prem by default, meaning we deploy it to our customers' clouds and on-prem facilities. So we never see the data, right? So we just give software updates. If we're not around anymore, it still keeps running. And we also believe that agencies should seek to own their own public key infrastructure. Why give the keys to the kingdom, to a vendor that may not be around, right? But this takes investment. It takes hiring key personnel for that. It takes key ceremonies and all these other things. So maybe federated models are interesting as well, where another agency might be able to do it for you. But keeping that public-private line, although collaboration is great, I think there's certain roles that certain people should play. We also invest heavily in open source, mainly built in the Rust programming language. If you saw that memory safety directive, hat tip to that, because that's one of the reasons we picked Rust. We integrate it with mainframes, with other things, but it has all the memory safety guarantees, and they can be used to build the perfect fitting components to an implementation. So we also built the California mobile driver's license wallet, and there's over 400,000, close to 500,000 in production. After testing with NIST and TSA, Californians can board airplanes with this, right? It can also be used online among a bunch of other innovations, including support for W3C verifiable credentials through the same gamut of testing. That same infrastructure issues W3C verifiable credentials. So we are excited to participate in the program, and we're excited to ensure support across all of our products in open source for the DHS implementation profile so that we can have great interoperability. Thank you.
I'll go first. I've got a recurring theme for all the groups that'll be presenting. So sadly, you didn't get the preview that the others will be getting. But it really comes down to when you're building applications for customers like the state of California, it's an ecosystem play, right? And so you're adopting open standards, and you want to demonstrate interop. But how do you balance delivering an interoperable solution and interoperating perhaps with even competitors with defining kind of a unique value proposition for what you're doing as a company?
Yeah, I think it's really important to have a mentality of abundance here, in that if you believe in market-based solutions can specialize to different use cases, that there's going to be a place for you to be able to compete in and business for you to specialize in. We may see, based on interoperable standards, right, enough people wanting to do this kind of open-ended system with a lot of modular components, that there's enough business for people who specialize in physical access controls, or mobile driver's licenses, or even off-highway vehicle certificates, which we work on in Utah, right? There's so many different things that can be digitized and built securely that I think that the ability for many firms to eat off of it and just have healthy businesses means more optionality for agencies to pick from when they're trying to evaluate solutions. They're not stuck picking a big monolith.
Hello? Okay, great.
Yep.
So my first question is, which exit, Wayne?
Which exit? Oh, so on 287, it was exit 3, and then off the turnpike 4B.
Oh,
Jeez,
this is the test.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're hesitating, but I'll take your New Jersey assertion anyway. I like that you talked. It's wonderful how much you talked about the flow and the user, people who are using it. What has been your experience, or have you had out in the field data of the user's ability, or are they overloaded, or do you have data back on selective disclosure and all of the flows that they need to do when using these different data models? Yeah, 2 things on this. A lot of the usability challenges were things we didn't even think about. Some people have the text zoomed in on their phones, and that broke some of the credential workflows. And it wasn't the cryptography that broke or anything, it was that it pushed the button off the screen, right? So really looking at the 508 accessibility guidelines and doing the right testing there, I think is a really important base for this ecosystem to start adopting and incorporating into products. And then secondly, I think that people don't want to figure out which boxes to uncheck. I think that it's actually a lot of decision making for an end user. And this is where I think the industry has a gap around reasonable disclosure frameworks. How can the wallet be smart enough to know you're at a bar and you should show that you're over 21, 18 in Canada, right? And then you can enter, right? And then as you share the portrait image, maybe for a verification, if that's a requirement, that it must be deleted immediately, right? So how do we automate that at the protocol level to ensure compliance with respect to a framework like CCPA or GDPR? I think that's going to be critical because the UX is way better. The phone's like, you're at a bar. They're asking if you're over 21. Okay, right? But if you're at a bank and you're opening an account and it knows that context, that's better. In the browser, when you go to a bad website, the certificate is broken, you get a big scary, right? So how do we make these big scaries for end users where they're being asked for too much data? Maryland's regulation is really interesting in that I believe the privacy law there is such that
As a relying party, you can't even ask for data unless the user's trying to do an action, and you actually need their data to do that action, right? So combination of policy and UX.
So sorry, you think I know how to use the mic, I'm a singer. Earlier, you mentioned that your solution verifies down to the device itself. You mentioned down to the silicon on the device.
Yep.
So my question as a person who works in a privacy office is that information tracked? Because I know you said you don't get our information, but would we get information about that phone? Because it's in our interest to want to make sure that we limit the amount of information about a person that we collect only to that which we need.
Barring what information the operating itself decides to beam, because that's kind of a black box in many cases, right? When I say that it can go down to the silicon, what I mean is that many devices have secure elements that manage private keys, and they're supposed to stay in the device and not be extractable very easily, right? So basically, using that component, we're able to tell if it came from the same device with a degree of confidence, right? So those data are not tracked by us, but I think that it's important to be careful about how you use these keys when you're presenting the data. If you're using the same key over and over again, that might create a correlation risk. A bunch of verifiers can, try to collude different information you disclose from the same device, but you can rotate out the keys, that might be a solution. So there's a lot of things that need to get standardized here, but it is possible to do it safely.
Thank you, Wayne. I know that, Joni, you have more questions, but Wayne's here all day. Tomorrow, yes.
Thanks.